Good morning. I'm Manda Adams, and I manage the AGS REU programs. I've been at NSF for 4 years, and this is actually my first PI meeting for REU, so I'm excited to be here, especially because most of our interactions are with people we didn't fund, so it's always nice to interact with people we did fund. So it's always a good when we get to meet with the PIs. And so I'm going to do most of the presentation, and Lisa's going to jump in a little bit. And Luciana couldn't be here today, but she did want to give her regards to all of the EAR PIs. So some of the things I'm going to go through today is talk about our move, talk a little bit about budget outlook, some of the new directions at NSF, and then we have some kind of things by the individual divisions. So if you haven't been to the new NSF building, this is what it looks like. We're now located in Alexandria, Virginia, at the Eisenhower Avenue metro station on the Yellow Line. So we're now just 3 stops from Reagan, which is great, except for next summer when they completely close that line to rebuild it. So, but for right now, it's good. It's a very nice building. We have very strong security now. So those who've been through have had the pleasure. I mean, TSA now looks quite easy after NSF security. But it is a very pretty building, and it's very high tech. So some of the things that you guys should just be aware of in terms of solicitations that might be related to things you have an interest in. We did just put out a new GEOPATHS solicitation. So right now, letters of intent are due September 21st, which is coming up very quickly. And full proposals are due in November. Also, there's the IUCE EHR program, and there's no deadlines for exploration and design, but December 11th is for design and implementation or community transformation. So check out both of those solicitations. One thing to point out about the GeoPaths, and this has been since the program started, but it's always important to point out that for the extra track, R1 institutions cannot be the lead on that proposal. They can be involved, they just can't be the lead institution. So especially if you're at a primarily undergraduate institution or you're at a community college, this is really a great opportunity for you to lead on a proposal in the impact track. And basically with GeoPaths, we're looking for proposals that are going to help students at transition zones. So whether that is transitioning from high school into college, from 2-year to 4-year, from 4-year to workforce, from 4-year to graduate school. You don't have to address all of those transition zones, but we're interested in those. And that's in the impact track. And then in the extra track, we're looking at things that are going to help enhance their undergraduate experience, so give them things beyond the typical classroom that are going to make it a more robust and enriching experience as an undergraduate. And we're hoping that all of these help prepare them for their future careers. Another recent solicitation is the IRES, International Research Experiences for Students. And I just wanted to point out that track 1 is especially relevant for undergraduate students. So if you'd like to do an international experience with undergraduate students, consider looking at that. You've got plenty of time. The next deadline is September 10th of 2019. So you've got a good year almost to think about that. Another new thing that you might hear about coming from the Geosciences Directorate, especially if you've heard Bill Easterly in our new AD talk, is Coastlines and People. So this is something that the Geosciences Directorate is very interested in, but there's also been engagement with biology, engineering, social, behavioral, and economic sciences, as well as education and human resources. And the main thing that's coming up, just so you're kind of on your radar, and some people in this room I know are attending, we have workshops occurring September 26th to 28th. They're happening simultaneously in 4 different locations. And they're really, each one's going to have about 100 to 125 people. And the point of these workshops is to generate ideas on what are the really interesting interdisciplinary research priorities or just the needs of the community related to coastlines and people. as well as a heavy emphasis on broadening participation and how we develop that into anything we would do on Coastlines and People from the very beginning. As well as these workshops, we'll be looking at what is the structure that would need to be in place to enable both the science and broadening participation. Another thing that's in the works that more information is going to be coming soon is NSF has started this NSF 2026 Idea Machine with the idea of moving in the future, how do we get input from the broad community on what the research, really fundamental research needs to be in the US. So that's just something to keep your eyes out for. This is something you should probably ask Lisa more than me, but Polar put out a Dear Colleague letter in coordination with Education and Human Resources to link Polar with some of the various programs up in Educational and Human Resources. So budgets, everyone always wants to talk about them, but nobody likes the conversation. This is I pulled out of NSF's budget request for FY19 to Congress. So the first column is what our requests are always based on previous years. So this is based on what the FY17 actuals were, and then it has the FY19 request related to REUs. Now, as you can see, this shows it down, but I would caution anyone to take any of this right now as word. We really don't know what the budget, I mean, last I heard, the Senate is planning to give NSF more than we requested, so we know what you know, which is when it actually passes a budget. So, but everyone always asks us, so this is what the request was, but I wouldn't take it yet as any sort of definitive thing. In terms of priorities we have in the geosciences for REUs, we're still continually looking for new models of how an REU can be run. You know, we're really interested in REUs, not just the scientific contributions you make and the way you develop students, but how you as a geoscience community can contribute to the intellectual merit about what an REU actually is. How does it run, what actually constitutes it, and we're really interested in different models. Also, before you go to any major conferences like AGU, AMS, ASLO, GSA, if you could send your cognizant program director the list of any students you have that are presenting, or if you're presenting on your REU site. And I have a template, if you want to email me, the AGS PIs know this, I send them a spreadsheet for them to fill out with what the name, the student, the time, where it's at, and all of that. And then we use those internally and share with our colleagues so that we can try and get as many program directors as possible to come by and see. The students usually get super excited when somebody from NSF comes to their poster. Also, still work on recruiting participants from underrepresented backgrounds, from MSIs, community colleges. That's still a high priority for GEO. For annual reporting, besides your annual report that you have to submit in NSF, you all know that we have an REU intern each summer who sends you a spreadsheet that we ask you to fill out, and this year we had 100% response rate, so all of our nagging, and just to put it in context, you can think of this student comes and they do an internship with us for just the summer, similar to an REU. But all of their data depends on you sending in those spreadsheets. So think of it as it's like an REU student that can't get started until you send us your spreadsheet. So that's why we get kind of on your cases about it. But thank you. And just one of the kind of, I think, interesting things that I pulled out of all the data she was analyzing is in this past summer, there were 10,464 applications to REU sites in the geosciences for 688 positions, which is a 7% success rate. And if you Google, there are only 4 universities in the country that have a lower success rate for freshmen getting in than we have for GEO REUs. So it's a good thing to tell the students too, because it makes them feel like they really accomplished something. But it's easier to get into MIT than it is to get into a GEO REU. One thing that we wanted to mention, you may have seen this came out in Nature Geosciences this past May. a paper about how there's been no progress on diversity in 40 years. This is some of the figures that we pulled out of it. I'm sorry, they're a little small. But the first one, starting on the left, shows for the different subdisciplines how many PhDs over the years. So there's been kind of a gradual trend upward. The next one shows the ethnicity of these PhDs. And so you can see heavily dominated by Caucasian. And the third one shows the PhD number of PhDs, but it also has, for the Geosciences, but it also has in the dashed lines what the US population is of different groups. And so you can really see how there's not a matchup between how we're increasing diversity in the geosciences compared to what even the general population increases are. So one of the things, though, to point out is that we have made some significant gains in gender. So this shows the percentage of PhDs by gender in the earth sciences, where you can see there's actually been a slight crossover, that now there's slightly more women than men in the earth sciences. Or sorry, no, it hasn't. It crossed over once, really briefly, in 2014. But if you look at what the gender of earth sciences REU students is, you can see that for several years now, there's actually been more female students than male. And so there is, we hope, a link between getting them in undergraduate research experiences than helping to keep, as something that helps keep them through the long-term to degree and advanced degrees. And in that vein, we want to point out this is data that our summer intern produced this summer. You may have noticed on the survey we added some new categories, so that's why some of these categories weren't in earlier years just because we didn't ask about it. But we did this year for the first time in 2018, and I shouldn't say we, I should say all of you, were able to actually have more underrepresented minority students participating in REUs than Caucasian students. So that's, you guys should give yourselves a round of applause for that. That's actually, you know, it's a slight amount, but we're really happy to see that because I know you guys put a lot of effort into trying to recruit students from diverse backgrounds. So some of the news from AGS, I'd really like to encourage sites that have some fieldwork component. We know in the atmospheric sciences, skills related to instrumentation are declining in our students, and so anything an REU can do to help in that would be greatly appreciated, as well as encouraging more engagement with community college students and students in their first or second year of college. Evaluation for AGS related REU sites, I strongly encourage an external evaluator, and you can put money in the budget for that. And then I just want to remind AGS PIs that to give students until March 15th or later to decide whether to accept or decline the REU. So you can make them the offer as soon as you want, but don't force them to decide yes or no until March 15th so that everybody is kind of on the even playing ground, that students aren't taking just the first offer, they're taking the one that's the best fit for them. This is the AGS Gender Trends from 2009 to 2018. And you'll notice the last 3 years we've now have more female students participating in REUs than male students. And this is the just the minority participation, the underrepresented minorities, or it also has the Caucasians on it, from 2009 to 2018 specifically for AGS. So you can just get an idea of kind of where we fall within that. Since Luciana's not here, just a few things. EAR also goes by that March 15th or later for asking students to make a decision, yes or no. As well as EAR sites might be participating in a new application system that NSF is starting to test for 2019. So there's pilots going on, and EAR is one of the parts of NSF that's starting to pilot these new applications. And part of this is us looking at NSF on ways we can long-term track students. I mentioned how many applications we have. What we don't know is how many students applied to multiple REUs. We don't know how many are unique students. And so hasn't been a good way to track. And so we're starting to look at application ways that NSF can potentially have common applications or create some sort of REU ID number that allows us to track students, not just in REUs, but potentially long-term then, because we don't know how many students who do an REU then apply for a GFRP, or how many then apply for a postdoc fellowship. We don't know that sort of thing. And EAR is one of the parts of NSF that's going to start piloting some of the ways we're thinking about this. And because we included it for AGS and OCE, so I also threw it in for EAR. This is just the last few years, what the student demographics look like by ethnicity. You can see that EAR has had a big increase in Hispanic students participating in their REUs. And I'll pass it off to Lisa now.